Welcome to the Milk Bottle eCommerce Show, brought to you by Milk Bottle Labs, Ireland's top-rated and officially accredited Shopify and Klaviyo e-commerce experts. Founder Keith Matthews interviews e-commerce professionals, app developers and entrepreneurs to share as much digital knowledge and e-commerce tips and tricks as possible. This podcast is kindly supported by our go-to e-commerce tools, Rewind.io, the leading backup solution for Shopify, BigCommerce, Trello and more. Let's just say it's the cheapest insurance policy you'll ever get for your Shopify store and all your valuable data. Simply go to rewind.io/milk bottle to get your first month for free. Our go-to Shopify application to supercharge in-store pickup and local delivery on your Shopify store is Zapiet. It's fully customizable and scalable from one location to thousands. Backed by outstanding customer support, it's no wonder Zapiet is trusted by over 10,000 plus stores across 150 countries. Now over to your host, Keith Matthews.
Hey folks, welcome back. Today I have the privilege of interviewing Leigh Marcum of Attentive SMS, a leading SMS marketing platform for Shopify merchants. Leigh runs the UK and EMEA operation, and she shared her expertise and insights into the world of SMS marketing and how it can be used as a core marketing and revenue growth tool for busy e-commerce brands, especially those on Shopify. Welcome, Leigh. How are you?
I am doing well. Thanks so much for having me today. The sun is shining here in London, so very, very good mood. Happy to end the week on a good note speaking to you.
Great. And before I pressed record there, I'm recording this from Dublin, and you were telling me that you were here on vacation.
On vacation. Yes, I was there for about a week. I wouldn't say it was the most relaxing vacation I've ever been on. My parents were actually in town. They flew over from Indianapolis, Indiana, which is where I'm originally from, for my 40th birthday. So they came over to Dublin. We did a whole tour of Ireland for about a week. Yeah. And when I say I think there was not one part of Ireland I didn't see in that week, I wouldn't be lying to you. So we were all over, Giant's Causeway, Cliffs of Moher, you name it. We saw it in that week.
I was at the Cliffs of Moher about a month ago. I was going to ask you that. Were you impressed?
I was. I honestly love Giant's Causeway even more. I'm a huge Led Zeppelin fan, so seeing like House of the Holy, album cover and then having to go see that in person, it's a wonder. I mean, I would go back in a heartbeat. That was just so cool to see. Yeah,
the coast, the west of Ireland coast, and northeast around to the northwest and around to the east and back down to Belfast is kind of not the most popular route, but possibly the most beautiful in the country. I drove it about a year ago. It's just absolutely gorgeous. So you had a good time, which is great. And you were made welcome by the Irish hospitality, I hope.
Absolutely. You definitely made me feel welcome. I saw a lot of green grass, a lot of green rolling hills, a lot of cows and sheep. I was blown away by the amount of cows and sheep there in Ireland, but a lot of time spent on a coach bus touring the country. So I got to see a lot of, beautiful places.
That's good. Well, nice to hear that you had a good time. But look, again, I will say you're very, very welcome. We've had a few, in a past life, I worked in the telecom sector and I managed a piece of business which was connected to SMS. So it's an area that I'm pretty familiar with. What I'm really interested in today is understanding what Attentive does, but also, could you give us kind of a snapshot of the current state of SMS? Because I remember about 18 months ago, 2 years ago, it kind of exploded. It was kind of exploded in a way as if it was just invented. But people started to catch on to it. So what's the state of SMS in e-commerce right now?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Maybe a loaded question depending on what market you're looking at. Just to give you a little context into my background, I've been with Attentive for 3.5 years. So 2 of those years were spent primarily focused on our growth in North America, and then have since moved over to a more international role focused on UK, Ireland, and the rest of EMEA. They're different. The markets are different, I think, in terms of adoption of the channel. If we're talking specifically about the US, I think if you're not using SMS in the US, I feel like you're at a competitive disadvantage. It's just been so widely adopted by so many retail and e-commerce brands in that market. I think historically the trends, marketing trends, when you look at trickling over from the States into UK, EMEA, APAC, typically maybe 1 to 2 years behind. And I think that's kind of where we're at right now in this market. SMS adoption is a little bit further behind where it is in the US today, but more and more brands are beginning to see the impact that it can have on the business. Looking at the adoption of WhatsApp versus SMS in this market as well. People don't really use WhatsApp in the US. Everybody uses it here. So getting over the hump of, talking about why SMS versus WhatsApp is a big part of, what we do here at Attentive. And, it is, the fact that I have so much experience both selling to different markets, part of my job and what I love to do is share how impactful it really can be on a business, driving incremental revenue, building that customer engagement. And that's where we're at. I think here in the UK, we've gone from very minimal subscribers when we first launched here about 2 years ago to, well over 500, 600 subscribers. So it's becoming more and more widely used, specifically by Shopify brands, over the past year and a half.
It's funny, Leigh, that you said that. You said that the adoption of SMS for e-commerce the UK was behind. It's funny because 15 years ago when I was in telecoms, the adoption of SMS purely as a communications tool in the UK and EMEA was well ahead of the US. And yet the US have adopted SMS for e-commerce purposes more than the UK. Isn't it hard to believe that within the same communications channel, the early adopters at the start are now the laggards within e-commerce?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that you guys are laggards by any means, because look, I think text as a channel, as a marketing channel even, has been around for a very long time. It's just in the way that brands have utilized it. The way that Attentive works with retailers, e-com brands, especially looking at the way we get consent and people to raise their hand and say, I want to hear from the brands that I love via SMS. I'm openly inviting you into my SMS inbox. The way that we go about it and the way we kind of nurture that customer relationship is a bit different than I think the market has historically done it, with just collecting phone numbers and sending messages months after people opt in or give a phone number. So it's just a little bit different of a usage of the technology, right? And again, that's kind of what we're here to do, is just educate the market and educate, on why Attentive is different and why we're driving such great results for the brands that we work with.
Now, you mentioned WhatsApp. Is WhatsApp the biggest competitor for SMS, or is WhatsApp just another channel that people can use if they want to?
Yeah, that's a great question. In my opinion, I think it's just another channel. I will say that when we first got to market, it came up a lot more in conversation of, hey, do you guys do WhatsApp? This is the channel, we're looking at. It doesn't really come up anymore as a competitor, so to speak. There's a lot of different nuances, I think, between, WhatsApp and SMS. SMS is a little bit more highly regulated of a channel, whereas WhatsApp, there's a lot of, legal privacy. It's owned by Facebook, so on and so forth. So it's a great question. I don't think it's as much of a issue, so to speak, or competitor this day and age, but it's definitely it's a great other channel, just not one that we, are focused on at Attentive.
So you mentioned there that Attentive does it a little bit differently. So Leigh, if you were to describe a successful SMS program, how does Attentive run that and how does it do it differently?
Sure. No, I love this question because I'm very passionate about, our key differentiators and ultimately, painting the picture of why we're ultimately going to drive better results than, competitor XYZ. I think a lot of what we do and really comes back to how we are gathering that consent and building that relationship with the consumer from day one. We have a number of list growth tools because, look, let's dial it back a little bit. You cannot drive revenue from SMS. You can't communicate with an SMS audience unless you have those people that have opted in, unless you actually have the people to message to, right? So everything starts with being able to build a high value, highly engaged SMS audience. I don't give my phone number to just anyone. And I think that stands true with, consumers and brands as well. They're only going to give their phone number if they find value in interacting with you. So the way that all of our list growth tools are incorporated are very consent oriented. Those are no surprises, right? People aren't going to be shocked when they get a SMS message from Attentive or from the brand that they signed up for, because there is a double opt-in. They have to basically say twice that they want to sign up for your program. And then there's also a verification of the phone number because, I don't know about you, but I have 4 or 5 different email addresses I use, whereas you only have one phone number. So we're protective of that. And when we give that away and say, hey, I'm giving you access into my, phone, that's big. That's huge. And in turn creates a really valuable subscriber that's very engaged. So I think it all kind of comes back to the consent piece and getting people to give permission to send for you to send marketing messages to them. And then once they open the door for that relationship, how do you nurture that relationship from building trust and credibility with that subscriber from day one by sending a welcome message and then sending them relevant content based on their behavior. So what they're interested in on site, historical purchase data, all those things that are very interactive, very personalized, that's ultimately hitting every single touch point of the customer life cycle. Yeah, and I'd say those are the 2 biggest pieces of how we're different.
So Leigh, is it, in your experience, is it a slow burner? Is there a longer runway to build up a decent SMS subscriber base, or is that completely based on the individual business or the vertical or how long they're established or the average order value of the store? Is there multiple different touch points that will influence the speed that you can build that list?
Yeah, in terms of just building the list, it's a crawl, walk, run approach, right? So if you've never done SMS before, it's definitely let's build that list first and foremost. And I think there's a common misconception among brands out there that that's going to take a long time. It doesn't. We have some really powerful list growth tools, including our patented two-tap technology, which ultimately it is exactly what it sounds like. You basically tap twice. You say, hey, I want to sign up. It pre-populates a text message, so you don't have to toggle back and forth between your browser and your text. It just automatically will open up your text with a pre-filled phone number and a pre-filled message. All that person has to do is just hit send. That's it. No manual entry required. So they're not having to put in a phone number, a keyword, nothing. So once that consumer just hits send, it verifies their phone number, pulls it in, and they're automatically entered into the list. And we send a welcome message to, again, build that trust with the brand and consumer immediately. So I think there is a misconception that it will take a long time, but with tools like mobile 2-tap, in addition to, desktop tools, we have Instagram tap to join. We can do QR codes. I mean, there's 30 plus different sign up units that we could incorporate to help a brand build their list very, very quickly. And not just quickly, it's quality too, quality list of people that are engaged.
Absolutely. Just hold that thought for 1 second, Leigh, and we'll just listen to our sponsors. Rewind.io is the leading data backup solution for your Shopify store. Did you know that there is no way of recovering lost data in Shopify? If your store is gaining traction, you may have multiple staff or third-party developers entering your store. Mistakes can happen and data can be easily deleted. Rewind.io puts you in control of your data, allowing you to restore anything accidentally lost from a single image to an entire store. It acts as a pretty cheap insurance policy for your Shopify account. At Milk Bottle, we help clients reduce their business risk by installing Rewind in every single store before we make any changes. Get your first month for free by simply replying to your sign-up email. Leigh, is deliverability a problem? 15 years ago when I was in the industry, the cost to deliver an SMS to the consumer's phone was relatively expensive if going through the local networks. And there was other ways of using international networks to deliver, but they could never guarantee deliverability. Is that an old problem or does that still exist?
I think it exists with other SMS vendors. Attentive, no. We have very, very large partnerships with all the major carriers across the globe. We have really strong partnerships with multiple aggregators, which are ultimately, sending messages. So from a deliverability standpoint, we're working with all the brands on what's the right phone number that you need to be sending from based on your size, what region you're in. All of these things are another value add of what we do because we're putting those pieces in place based on our experience to say, we need to get this message and get it to the consumer quickly. Because you talk about that via email all the time, right? Like I used to work in email. I know deliverability, getting to the inbox is always an area of focus. And it should be via text too.
Yeah.
You have to get that message to the consumer. So partnering with the right vendor that has all those relationships is incredibly important.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. Leigh, traditionally, or at least when SMS was growing rapidly in the States, again, I'll refer to probably the last period, 2 years ago, 18 months ago, it was seen as a perfect solution for your VIPs or to treat people differently. Is that still the same or has it changed? Is every consumer now treated differently to email customers?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And, I think it varies by industry, by which vertical your business is in. I think in the luxury space, for example, or, looking at very high value, high consideration types of items and purchases, I think exclusivity, building kind of that VIP segment, that works really well for, say, the luxury space, right? Not to say it doesn't work well for fast fashion or footwear or jewelry or accessories. It's just it's a whole other use case, I would say. But I think more widely adopted now especially in the US market and North America, people are using SMS more as it's just another communication channel, not specifically for exclusivity, but for that additional touch point throughout the customer journey. I mean, you talk about all the different channels that, marketers use today, and SMS has become one of the most important, if not, top 3 revenue driving channels. So the way they use it industry wise, across the board could be different. It's going to vary. Exclusivity is just probably one piece of the puzzle.
I hear you. You mentioned earlier on there about, the quality of your list over the list size. And also, obviously, you have to be very careful how often you communicate to people. They have to sign up properly. You're probably more than aware of the general data protection, the GDPR regulations that were brought in Europe in 2018. So if you were to advise a brand who was just about to jump into SMS, what are some of the best practices for Shopify brands if they were to embark on it in the short term?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think for Shopify brands specifically, and look, whenever I'm going into a call or speaking with a new customer and I see that they're using Shopify, I get immediately excited. The ability to start working with them almost immediately, getting an SMS program off the ground time to value, right? Like being able to launch an SMS program with ease, which is a huge piece of, how we work with Shopify clients, it is something you can't put a price on, right? So I think, looking at the different rules and regulations in multiple markets, it's really important, obviously from a compliance standpoint, that all of your list growth tools, all of the different ways that you're going to get people to sign up, that those guardrails are put in place for you. Like as a business, if I'm talking to a jewelry brand, they don't know the guidelines and, rules around how to collect properly SMS compliant. Leave that to the person you're working with. So that's part of again, our value add and what we, work with the brands on is making sure you have the right legal language, the right, placement of that legal language. Everything's put in place to protect, those businesses. And that kind of stuff just comes out of the box too. Like, because we have so many customers, specifically looking at Shopify customers, how easy it is to put those together, put those templates together and get launched incredibly quickly.
Is it correct to say then that you provide kind of a white glove service to board that customer? I'm assuming that somebody boards, somebody trusts you. As you say, you're holding data, you're operating within the local legislation and GDPR guidelines. So I'm assuming then that when that customer decides to use you, that you walk them through a process. Like, what's the boarding process?
Yeah, no, another great question. I think I have a good example too. It's a quote from one of our UK customers, Astrid and Miu, who is a Shopify customer. And I think Lucy Kimish, who's the senior global CRM manager for Astrid and Miu, she has a great quote. We have a case study on the site, but she's talking about how people are so apprehensive going into, new technologies, new channels. They think it's going to be a huge lift on their dev team and just a huge lift on their team in general. So people go in thinking that it's going to be this like time consuming project when in fact, I can sit here all day long and say from experience that it's going to be, a quick launch, but until they actually go through that process and go through it with us, they can see how quickly, it takes. I think she said, some people will tell you that a platform is plug and play. And in the back of your mind, you think, oh my God, I'm going to have to do loads of extra work, get my development team involved. But she says with Attentive and Shopify, like they actually mean it. It's really, really quick to get live. So don't take it from me, take it from other people, right? But it really is just a very quick launch, plug and play scenario. And again, why I get so excited to talk to Shopify brands.
Yeah, Shopify does it very well. It is amazing some of the time the amount of SaaS providers who will say that. And of course, that's not the case.
Yep.
You do need some piece of software and you need a dedicated person to make sure they run right. But it's nice to hear. Your point about the customer is interesting too. Don't ask me, ask my customer. So we'll share the links there to the case studies on the site and the show notes as well.
Yeah. And I will say, like, just on that note too, I used to work in email. So something I'm very conscious of when I'm speaking to brands is, hey, I know how long it can take to migrate from ESP to ESP, right? And being able to share just how easy it is to get up and running with Attentive, especially for Shopify brands, is just something I love to be able to do, just given that I've had, different experience in other MarTech. To get back to your question, I think I didn't answer it fully in terms of maybe what the onboarding process looks like, but we offer a free trial. So that's one of the other, huge value adds of what we can do is say, hey, we're going to give it to you for free before you make any sort of commitment. We want you to try it. It's a new channel. It's a new concept, try it before you buy it. And once somebody signs up for that trial, the launch process could take anywhere from 2 days to a week. Actually, the average, we pulled this stat not too long ago, the average time it takes a brand to go from kickoff call to launch is 2 days.
Absolutely brilliant. Leigh, one question that I'm asking a lot of people over the last few months, and this may not be directly related to your own product, but is AI, will it be part of your tech stack? Is it something that you've already implemented? I mean, what's your views on it at the moment?
Yes, Attentive does have AI capabilities. Those AI tools are incredibly important, I think, just to make the life of the marketer easier. I mean, we understand marketing today it's difficult. It's difficult to get in touch with your consumers. There's all kinds of different channels, all the different Facebook and Apple changes. We understand the life of a marketer is difficult. We're not trying to add more to it, right? And so some of those AI tools that we've implemented include things like Magic Composer, which are ways that we can automatically generate copy for SMS messages based on, look, we have billions of messages that we've sent, millions of opt-ins. We have the data. We have a lot of great results and data that we've been able to utilize to create these AI tools to eventually take the time off of the marketer and make their lives easier, being able to create segments, automations, campaigns based on best practices and industry, all of those different data points that we have. So yeah, I think it's incredibly important. We're just getting started too, right? It's pretty cool to see, and I can't wait to see where it is, even 5 to 10 years from now.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. And for those who don't know, Shopify have recently launched it into their product description area in the Shopify admin, the Magic Composer, which allows you to use AI to actually write your product descriptions. So you mentioned there that you have a massive data set, prior messages being sent, haven't been sent, but also you've a very deep integration into Shopify. So, are you using that in any way? Like, are you using the Shopify data, the past order history, the customer's location, the average order value? Are you using that rich data and combining it with your own data to add value? Is that within the product?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think, within the Shopify integration, that's just one benefit, being able to backfill historical purchase data, CRM data, better understand who those consumers are, and be able to target accordingly based on past purchase history. I think that's one advantage that Shopify customers can take advantage of. The other is just our out-of-the-box behavioral-based segmentation or automated capabilities. Within our Shopify integration, we offer things like cart and browse abandonment, post-purchase campaigns, back in stock. All of these are out of the box with Shopify, which brings to mind a current customer that I had a speaking session with not too long ago. Her name is Georgina Little. She's the head of retention and loyalty for the Inky List, which is a growing skincare brand. They're working with us in multiple countries. One thing that really stood out during our conversation was that 80% of their attributable SMS revenue was coming from these automated behavioral-based journeys, all which were set up within Shopify. So those are going to include things like cart and browse abandonment. And then they recently incorporated price drop as well. So it's things like that have a ton of value. I mean, 80% of your total revenue coming from just one specific message type is pretty incredible. They see an average conversion rate on those messages of about 36%. I believe. So, and that wouldn't be possible without that Shopify integration.
Absolutely not. And we'll put the links to What was the name again? The Inky List. Is that what you said?
The Inky List. Yeah. The Inky List. Yeah.
It's a cool name, isn't it?
INKEY. Yeah. They're incredible. I had that speaking session with Georgie and I was like, can you just come and join every single one of my sales calls? Because everything she said was just, and it came back to the whole, don't hear it from me, hear it from somebody else.
Yeah.
And everything she said about time to value, it took them 2 weeks to get launched with Attentive, incrementality, ability to drive, I think they had a 26x ROI on their UK program. I mean, it's incredible the results they've seen. And that's just one example.
Fantastic. Well, Leigh, we've come to the end and it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you.
Yeah, no, this has been great. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. All of our episodes are available on Spotify, iTunes, and Google Podcasts. A special note of appreciation goes to our sponsors, Rewind.io, the leading backup solution for Shopify store owners. Get your first month of Rewind for free by simply responding to any welcome email once you sign up for your free trial on Rewind.io. If you're a Shopify user with an exciting story to tell, reach out to the team on podcast@milkbottlelabs.com. Until the next time, take care.